What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast. We're talking about the latest and greatest of cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shan Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
And Chris Abacon.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on? So welcome to the discussion episode of the podcast. So Monday, Tuesday are topics, Wednesday discussion, Thursdays Ask a CSP, Fridays everything else, movies, books, games. I don't know if I said this part already. I feel like I did. Did I?
Possibly.
I'm distracted, I guess. I don't know. Well, now you know twice, people. All right. For those listening to it on the podcast anyway. But definitely check us out throughout the week. We're on your podcast platform of choice, as well as YouTube, and now on the radio, 99.1 FM, and the TuneIn app, and then Channel 10 on public access. So all those places. But without further ado, I give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this article comes from NBCnews.com, written by Kevin Collier, and the title of this one is Children's Data Hacked After School Software Firm Missed Basic Security Step, Internal Report Says, right? So that basic security step, and honestly, yes, it is considered to be basic now because it's one of those things where people are even hacking and getting around this, though. Multi-factor authentication. We talk about it all the time, right? Like that has to be the absolute basic thing you do when it comes to authentication, right? But this hack, that's one of the things that wasn't present, you know what I mean, on one of the accounts that they had, right? And that's how they got in, right? So because they didn't have the multi-factor authentication, they got breached, and this company helps schools track tens of millions of students, right? So children's personal information, we've had different stories on this. We had a few of them that have come up, right, where school districts have been hit, but this one seems to be the largest one in American history. They seem to think, because so far, right? Give it time. This one will get surpassed at some point as well, right? So, but what ended up happening was they had a interim cybersecurity audit by CrowdStrike, right? And it said the company, they failed to take basic precautions to protect students' data, right? So we keep running into this where the corners keep getting cut. And this is what happens, right? You end up having information of this magnitude, like again, students' information that gets put out there. And it's one of those things where it kind of tugs at people. I think this hits a little harder because it's children, right? Like it's not adults that are getting hacked here. That, you know, okay, you're expected to take a little bit of risk, right? But as a child, that you know, it's just a matter of their school records, right? Not necessarily records, but their information to register for school. That's the stuff that's being hacked here, and that's, I don't know. For me, it kind of tugs at my heartstrings, right? Like I have 4 children, right, and to know that something like this could happen to them, possibly did happen to them. I don't know if this PowerSchool is one of the ones used for my 2 younger children that are in school, right? So I don't know. We got to do better, folks. Like how are we not to the point where multi-factor authentication is not the basic now, right? Like, and again, I know I mentioned that that's one of the things that recently we had an article not too long ago where they talked about multi-factor was they got around it, but you got to at least start there. We can't keep doing this username password thing and then that's it, no verification of any type that goes into it. Like we talked about it previously, like the passkeys and whatnot for the Gmail accounts. You know, like we gotta do better, folks. This is I don't know. Chris, what's your thoughts on this? I'm gonna leave it.
I mean, yeah, obviously, if somebody with administrative rights or higher privileges, like if you're like one of the basic tenets in cybersecurity is, you know, the access control, right? If you have privileged access, you need to have higher levels of security for that, right? You need to protect your passwords, not just like the actual physical passwords. You need multi-factor authentication, whether it might be through YubiKey or, you know, your, you know, authenticator app, passkey, right? Very powerful tools that are really best practices. And if you're an IT administrator, and, you know, if you're still writing down your passwords and, you know, having them in your sticky wall, like it's we're past that now. Right, we're past that. Not all of us work in like a sensitive compartment facility, right? We can't just, oh yeah, it's never gonna. A lot of people there's a lot of potential for your password getting leaked out there, and I know we like to talk about this in the podcast, right? So they do. Our school did say that they paid the hacker, right, and received a video of them appearing to delete the stolen data. Like, come on, like, can you trust that guy? Right? Can you trust that it was actually deleted?
Can you trust the thief?
Just because it's, you know, it's children's data doesn't mean they're going to be nice hackers. They want something from you, right? They can come back and be like, you know what? We didn't delete this data. We need some more money, right? So again, we still stand by our, podcast. You never negotiate with hackers. Don't escalate it to the appropriate authorities and let them help you, right? That being said as well, this is obviously PowerSchool did a great job of capitalizing on COVID, being, the remote school became a thing, and everything is, in the cloud now, and all the student data is centrally located. But there's a lot of concentration here to this one. Maybe it's time for a competitor to come up, and somebody else has to offer a different solution, right? So you're talking like in the state of Georgia, more than 230,000 students may have been affected. That's unbelievable. That's just one state, right? So consider what state you're from and how many students there are. That's a lot of social security numbers, addresses, where parents live, right? Businesses, whatever it might be. Like, that's a lot of leak, right? So we just got to do better. We just got to do better.
And the thing that makes it worse is that they weren't even tracking that they were hacked until they reached out to them. The hackers reached out to them to let them know, hey, give us a payment. And then they were like, what? Wait a minute. We were hacked? Like, you didn't even know. You know what I mean? You didn't follow a basic tenet, and then you didn't even know that you had an issue. It makes it worse.
Right.
No, absolutely. I think you guys bring up a lot of good points. So from my perspective, so I was going to make a joke, and I stopped myself because Shannon's being serious when he said it tugs at your heartstrings. I was going to say, you have a heart? And then, but I was like, being appropriate because he's on a roll here. He's going
somewhere. My wife doesn't think so sometimes. You know what I mean? My wife doesn't think so sometimes. Like, how do you talk to your family like that? Well, they're adults. They know better than this, right?
But no, in all seriousness, so like, because you would say, oh well, it's kid data, like who cares about grades and things of that nature, but you have to think about how much data can actually be sourced from these type of records, right? Like, does this child have special needs? What kind of support are they receiving? Like, what is their home life like? Because all that stuff is captured also in their records, because that has a lot to do with their ability to learn and if they need help to a certain extent. So there's a lot of information that could be used, and like you said, birthdays and security numbers, right? Who does not check their credit score? Children. By the time you're an adult, you might not have any credit because someone has used it to buy a yacht or some other nonsense, right? Or some other kind of scheme and not paid the bill. So a lot could be lost in this. I worked with a EdTech company in my first consulting job, right? So I would sit with them and talk about their current posture, and they were into development. So they used to build products. So they were very concerned about the kids' data, parents' data, teacher data. Like, they didn't want any of that stuff to be divulged. So they were very like, what do we do about this? What's our risk here? Like, let's do a business impact analysis. Let's figure out like acceptable use policy for our devs, because they're always creating and churning out new products, and, fixing the things that are already out there. And then, by the way, we're an international company now because we're not just in America, we're in Canada. So how's the PIPA affect us? Now we have some teachers out in the UK. How does GDPR affect us? Like, we're always having to go through a lot of governance to make sure that they comply. So I'm like, how did this company not? It kind of baffles me, right? Being as big as they were, because this company was obviously a decent size and growing, but this one is supposedly established. So it makes me kind of concerned. Just how did you miss these measures? And then who is on your team that was like, yeah, we'll watch a video of somebody deleting our data, and that's good enough for us. Like, who would thumbs that up? So I feels as though they're just not in a very mature level of cybersecurity, and that having that type of data, it can make for like a lot of nonsense to happen in the future.
And that's sad because of the amount of people that are affected. They're saying millions, man.
Right.
Like, how did you get to this point?
Yeah, how did you grow? Like your priorities obviously were on growth. I'm not a business guy, but I understand that, right? Companies have to grow. They have to find new avenues, and like the pandemic did a lot for companies like this, because we could never put a genie back in the bottle. So like I talked to my coworkers, because I'm a remote worker. Some of them are in the North Capital region, right, in DC. And then when snow days hit, their kids did not just get a snow day, right? It was like, no, we have the ability to go back online now. So you might get a day off, but you're not getting a week off because of these conditions. Like when I was a kid, you just couldn't go to school. So that will never stop. So these companies will only grow and become more popular because now that we're in a situation where we know kids can go to school online for short periods of time, if necessary, or long periods of time. Like, so now they're becoming more embedded in our culture, and that's the way we do education. But for them to be skipping and cutting corners like this definitely is concerning. Yeah, and I can see, like you said, they're going to get double tapped. Like you watch somebody delete something, but was that all the data? Can they come back? Because they usually come back. So I just don't think they're in a good position. They definitely have a lot of work to do. Whomever their consulting team is, whoever they brought in for instant response, there's a lot to be done there. Hopefully they get right sooner rather than later, because they're relying on millions of people relying on them, right? And like Chris said, maybe a competitor needs to come in to scoop these people up, because you're not doing so hot. So, but definitely continue to tune in to the podcast. Hit us up by all the websites that go by our name. The Other Side of the Firewall, The Other Side of the FW, or Ask a CISSP. Hit me up personally at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me pretty much on all the platforms, but LinkedIn's my bread and butter. And where can they find you, Chris?
You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Chris Abacon. Last name is spelled A. Bacon.
There it is. Stay safe. Stay secure.